know a lot of people hate it, but the Katy Perry Sims 3 pack is actually gay culture.
Yarby Denzel table dupes, Evie took a mimi shoops, hippie keeps the upper coop.
It's a controversial take, but someone had to say it. Oh, I hated that. Hello, welcome to Mia Likes Movies. My name is Mia, and yeah, I like movies. I like other things too, but Mia Likes Movies just sounded best. I seem to be covering a lot of video game stuff recently. I really do like video games, but Mia Likes Video Games just doesn't have the same ring as Mia Likes Movies. So I'm gay, if you didn't know. Bisexual technically, and I do use she they pronouns. And if you have a problem with that, get out of here. I mention this because the topic today has a lot to do with that. And this is a topic that I relate to. It's very personal to me, and I have an extreme connection to it. So there is this whole subculture of gay gamers, but in an industry that is typically controlled by cis, straight, white men, it can be hard to feel like there's any accurate representation or interest in catering to your experience as someone not in that demographic. That being said, myself and a lot of other gay gamers have found a strong connection to RPG and life simulation games. When you think about games like The Sims or Animal Crossing, who do you picture as the typical player demographic? That's right, the gays and the girlies. Now, do the same thing with games like Call of Duty or Halo. You're not picturing the same player demographic with those. The vibes of both the players and the games are extremely different, to say the least. There's more than just an aesthetic reason for this. So today I'm here to talk about why the LGBTQIA+ community does feel such a strong connection to specifically simulation games. This is no way to say that gay people don't play AAA games or first-person shooters or whatever. From personal experience, you can find the gay niche community of any game if you look hard enough. The internet and its many algorithms across social media have helped with that. However, overall, it's clear certain games attract more gay fans than others. The internet has really found a way to create connections between all sorts of communities and people of all different backgrounds. Through my research, it was extremely clear that simulation games are intrinsically tied to the history of gay characters in video games. Because of this, I don't think it's a coincidence that most people that play simulation games identify as part of the LGBTQ community. As a whole, most LGBTQ people do not feel represented in video games. A recent study by Nielsen found that 65% of LGBTQ gamers do not feel video games properly represent all sexual orientations. Interestingly enough, 19% neither agreed or disagreed, leaving only a whopping 16% agreeing that all sexual orientations have representation and/or inclusion in video games. Comparatively, only 28% of heterosexual gamers disagreed. A really interesting conclusion that Nielsen came to in the study was that the LGBTQ community has proportionately more gamers in it than the heterosexual community. 65% of all LGBTQ consumers play games of all types, compared to only 63% of heterosexual consumers. So it's clear that the gay community is engaged in the gaming industry. So it is really sad to see that we do not feel represented overall. Just speaking personally here, the gay community does not want to turn everyone gay or every character gay. We just want to see ourselves and more individuals reflected in the media we consume, which is not a huge ask. As Nielsen said in the conclusion of the report, quote, "Given these consumers are also engaged gamers, considering all demographics when creating video game characters, as well as in marketing efforts, may help the gaming industry reach their audience in more meaningful and personal ways," end quote. As I said in the introduction, an industry dominated by cis straight white males does not necessarily always create products or an environment for people that don't fit that same demographic. Much like in real life, virtual LGBTQ characters have always been around, but they had to be hidden in order to pass. If you watched any of my other videos, you know that I love to dive into some history and fun facts, and I wanted to do that here as well. So let's talk briefly about the history of gay video game characters, shall we?
We must stick it in a park, skip it, dip it in it.
And if you want to delve into this topic deeper, I highly recommend checking out the LGBTQ Game Archive, which I will link in the description below. The first instance of what most consider a queer character in gaming actually happened all the way back in 1986. Moon Mist was a computer game about a detective investigating paranormal activity in a castle. While it was not explicitly stated, many believe that one character, who is considered the scorned lover, is the first lesbian video game character ever. And interestingly enough, Birdo is often considered to be the first ever canon trans video game character. What? So Birdo first appeared in the game Doki Doki Panic in 1987, which was later released as Super Mario Bros. 2. And in the instruction manual, they stated that, quote, Birdo thinks he is a girl and likes to be called Birdetta. So obviously they did not do it in a respectful way, as they clearly misgendered and dead named her. One description of her in another game says that she, quote, appears to be Yoshi's girlfriend, or does that mean boyfriend, end quote. While not cool how they went about it, it is interesting that such a large series happened to birth the first canon trans video game character. And I always wondered why Birdette was considered a gay icon. Like, obviously she's iconic, but it turns out it goes deeper than just being fabulous. She's one of us. She's one of the dolls.
The dolls are the dolls.
In 1998, Fallout 2 became the first ever video game to allow same-sex marriages. This was almost 2 whole decades before it was legal nationwide in the United States, which is crazy to think about. The first Sims game would be the next to feature same-sex marriages, albeit due entirely to a miscommunication. At the
1999
E3, the Sims developers displayed a preview of the game. During the preview, 2 female Sims were shown kissing and getting married. Prior to this, the developers were debating about whether or not they wanted to feature same-sex marriages and relationships in the game. Ultimately, they decided against it. However, allegedly, that message did not get passed to Patrick Barrett. Now, Patrick Barrett, who identifies as a gay man, was the person responsible for training the AI that determined the characters' romantic relationships in the first Sims game. He was not aware that the higher-ups decided to limit relationship options and was therefore working with what was considered to be old code. So this old code was used in that demo at the 1999 E3, which resulted in that infamous lesbian kiss. Although the audience and developers were shocked, they ultimately decided to keep this freedom of expression in the game. The Sims ended up becoming a major success and is still considered to be one of the best-selling PC games of all time, and it is often praised for its ability to appeal to all audiences, specifically women and even more casual gamers. The 2010s and 2020s have seen a lot of progress in queer representation in video games. 2013 was when we saw marriage equality nationwide, finally, in the United States. And this was also when The Last of Us dropped, which features Ellie, who was later canonically confirmed to be gay in the DLC Left Behind. And that DLC was released a year later in 2014. Then in 2016, Stardew Valley was released. And if you don't know, Stardew Valley is an extremely popular farming simulator, and you're able to romance some of the other characters in the town, and there's a lot of options for same-sex relationships. And then in 2020, we saw the iconic release of Animal Crossing New Horizons. Nintendo opted to use the word style instead of gender when customizing the playable character, albeit after backlash from consumers and activists. Many gender nonconforming people often talk about how Animal Crossing allowed them to explore and realize their true gender identities.
We must stick it in a park, skip it, dip it in it.
So when I think of gay games, I think The Sims, Stardew Valley, and Animal Crossing. As I said before, it's no coincidence that these games also happen to be historically significant for queer representation in video games. You genuinely can't explore explicitly gay characters in video games without talking about the Sim series and its impact. Not to mention, Animal Crossing and The Sims are some of the best-selling game series of all time. Again, this is no coincidence. Representation and self-expression are extremely important to consumers of all backgrounds. People notice when content caters to more than just cis, straight, white men. Back to the main discussion. Why do gay people love The Sims and other life simulation games? Well, if you watched my Mass Effect video, which if you haven't, you should, because in my opinion, it's really good and I'm really proud of it. You may remember that in that video, I talked about something called the Proteus effect. The The Proteus effect is named after the Greek god Proteus. Proteus was able to easily alter his physical appearance. Thus, the Proteus effect describes a phenomenon in which the behavior of an individual within virtual worlds is changed by the characteristics of their avatar. In 2007, two researchers in the Stanford University Department of Communications, Nick Yee and Jeremy Bailenson, conducted two different experiments exploring this Proteus effect. One experiment had players rank different avatars according to their attractiveness. Then the participants were assigned one of these avatars, and then they would chat with other people. They found that players with avatars that were ranked more attractive would act more confidently than those that were ranked lower on the attractiveness scale. Players with the more attractive avatars would walk closer to other avatars, initiate conversations, and revealed a lot more personal information in those conversations. The second experiment had people participate in a VR negotiation of sorts. The players were assigned either taller avatars or shorter avatars. People with the taller avatars were more likely to demand a higher split of money, while those with the shorter avatars seemed to settle for smaller amounts of money. In their study, Yee and Bailenson wrote, quote, "Although extreme self-transformations are expensive, example, cosmetic surgery, or difficult to perform, example, gender reassignment surgery, on our physical bodies, nowhere is self-representation more flexible and easy to transform than virtual environments where users can choose or customize their own avatars, digital representations of themselves." End quote. Life simulation games like The Sims provide players a safe way to explore gender expression and sexuality in a low-stakes way. Life simulation games explore our reality and ordinary experiences with the freedom of play and creation, often a luxury not afforded to the queer community, many of whom are sadly targets of mass amounts of hate speech, bigotry, and hate crimes. I think Lakin Brooks said it best in their article, How Video Games Can Help LGBTQ Players Feel Like Themselves. Simply, they said, quote, "The virtual world can be a sanctuary," end quote. So next time you question why gay people love The Sims or Animal Crossing or Stardew Valley, just remember that it is so much deeper than just aesthetics. These simulations are safe havens for a community that does not have the freedom to truly and authentically express themselves without fear of verbal and physical retaliation.
We must stick it in a park, skip it, dip it in it.
So I know this video was a little bit on the shorter side and a little bit more serious, but it is a topic that I think is important as I am a part of the queer community. We've made huge strides in representation in all forms of entertainment media, but we still have a long way to go. The work is never over. That being said, we should always acknowledge the progress that we have made. Often we want to focus on what more we can do instead of also uplifting what we have accomplished. Thank you again for watching and joining me on this YouTube journey. It's officially been over a month since I first started posting, and I've been having a wonderful time, and thank you all for being here. I'm really happy with the videos that I've made so far, and thank you for the bottom of my heart for watching them and subscribing and liking and commenting. I love hearing from you guys. It's my favorite thing in the world, to connect to people and talk about things that I love with people who also love those things. Please let me know if there are any other topics you want me to cover. I have some ideas, but if you want to see something, comment below and I'll check it out. As always, remember to like and subscribe. I love you guys. Bye-bye. That was gay. It's gay to say I love you, but I love you. Bye.
Yarmy Denzel table dupes, Ibby Duka Mimi shoops, Hippie keeps the upper goop. Yarmy Denzel table dupes, Ibby Duka Mimi shoops, Hipsy kick you